we're doing it for money's sake, or to have more clout, or have more success, or have more zeros, or be able to have more expensive things that we can show off to the rest of the world. And it's not about wellness. It's not about, I need a healthy body, mind, spirit, and family. And those are the things that are important, and how much money then is required in my life that really supports, underwrites the cost of living a life that's well, W-E-L-L.
And our society is always more is better. And whether that's more zeros, more money in the bank, and then we get pretty stingy when it comes to our body's own health. We kind of treat ourselves like a slave. I don't know if you've seen that in entrepreneurs, but a lot of them push themselves to just until they literally collapse, and then they finally do something about their health.
And I don't know about you, but the bigger my business gets, the bigger the challenges, the more expensive the problems, the more complaining, and the more HR, it doesn't get easier with bigger. So we want to find that number that's our number, that's about our meaningful life, and our meaningful business is connected to our meaningful life, and integrate these together.
All right. Welcome, everybody, to Unreasonable Health Podcast. This is your host today, Cade Archibald, and I am really honored to be here with you all. We're going to be diving into a really unique interview and podcast today. Before we dive in there, I want to kind of, first of all, go over our Health Accelerator Challenge that we talked about last night. If you're not a part of the Health Accelerator community and those challenges, go to acueastwest.com/hack. Check those out. This is where you get live access to Regan and I real time. You can ask questions. We go through different challenges. It's a fun process. And so we covered some really cool stuff on peptide bioregulators last night. And that is the big challenge, is either get your carotid artery scan or get try out some peptide bioregulators if you haven't tried those out before. And so you can reach out to East West to get those, or there's other resources as well. So on today's show, we're going to dive in. We have a guest appearance. She is an awesome, just a very cool, unique individual, and really excited to be able to introduce this interview that Regan does with Krisstina Wise. Who is Krisstina Wise? She's a real estate mogul, millionaire coach, creator of several multi-million-dollar businesses, including Good Life, Luxury, The Paperless Agent, and most recently, Wealthy Wellthy. She is also an international speaker, award-winning author of the Amazon best-selling Falling for Money, a romance novel for your bank account, named one of the 100 most influential real estate leaders in the country. She's been featured in USA Today as well as by Apple, Contractually, and Evernote for her creative leadership with emerging technologies. So you guys enjoy this interview with Krisstina Wise and Regan Archibald.
Okay, well, it's so good to be here, everybody, on Unreasonable Health, and I've brought in my friend Krisstina Wise with Wealthy Wise, and Krisstina, welcome to the show.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here. Have fun. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Now, Krisstina and I hosted a retreat together in February of 23, and it was such a great experience. And I mentioned this to you, Krisstina, but one of the things you'll find in this conversation is that Krisstina is somebody who has an enormous amount of intention and power behind what she says. And when I got to know more about your story, because we'd known each other just working on your health issues, but I'd known what you did for a profession, but when I really learned your story and learned who you were as a person, I just had a whole nother level of respect and admiration. And so I'm hoping maybe you could share with my audience a little bit about you and what you've been through in order to decide that health and wealth need to be focused on together and combined.
Yeah, I'll share a little story and work to keep it as concise as possible. But before that, what's interesting is when I really started in the journey that I'm on now, which is Wealth and Wealth, WELLTH. It's that when I really started diving into this, I started looking at the etymology of the word wealth, WEALTH, and even looking at the etymology of wellness, of health, of HEALTH. And they both the etymology goes up to the same words, which is wheel, WEIL, which means wealth. And it first started with health wealth, and that turned into money wealth. So even when you really look at the language, wealth and health are the same word. Like they just kind of bifurcated and took on a little bit of different meaning. But the more I really studied this and just thought my own life and others' lives, just realizing these really are like this two sides of the same coin. And when we can understand our wealth, our money wealth, and our health, and if they are two sides of the same coin, I think we can approach these two subjects differently by looking at them the same thing, but looking at them differently or at different times, depending on, is it heads or tails at any given moment. But so simple story, my kind of money story, if you will, is today I'd say a money coach, a money consultant, a money mentor, and I really teach wealth, meaning how much money is enough to live a good life is really what I teach. And I teach that philosophically in the sense of what is a good life, and practically how much does it cost to live it, and then very programmatically and systematically, especially to entrepreneurs, so that we know our numbers, so we know what we're doing this for to help us keep on track. That's what I do now as opposed to my journey. So it doesn't escape me that I find it funny in a way, not maybe funny haha, but funny interesting, that I'm teaching money and financial independence and again, how much is enough when I started in a trailer home. I mean, this is so far from my roots of where I started and the mindset I started in and the family I started in and all of that is just so radically different that again, it's not lost on me of what the journey it's been and what a juxtaposition that is to kind of where I started to where I am. So started there, but ultimately after, being very entrepreneurial young age is learning if I want to change my conditions and get out of this very impoverished situation I'm in, there's this thing called money, and I want to have money. So from a young age, I was very enterprising to learn how to make money because I wanted the Jordache jeans and I wanted the Izod shirt and I wanted all the things that allowed me to fit in with the people at school that otherwise I couldn't fit into. So that's kind of where my entrepreneurial journey started, was completely for no other reason than to make money. And I wanted to make a lot of it because from the purview from a kid, it's the more money I have, the more I can fit in, the better I can feel about myself. So that story started then, right? And then it continued long into adulthood till I changed that story. But that's kind of where the story began. Just a love of money and a love of success and a love of achievement. Because the more that I could be and the more that I have, I was able to prove to the world that I was somebody. And that worked until it didn't work anymore. Where my kind of money, where I really started to learn money, where it changed for me is after college. I studied accounting and finance in college because I was, again, very motivated, money and business, business and accounting and finance. It must be where the money is. So even then, that stayed consistent. Not that I learned anything that was applicable in college, but that's what I did. But after college, I got into real estate sales. I was going to go back to grad school, got into real estate sales. So the point of telling that story is that I was really good at making money because I was a hustler. I was motivated by money. I was motivated by the trophies. If I could be number one at everything, again, that kind of fit into that whole narrative that I was in. And so just very motivated. And I made more money in a year than my parents would make in a lifetime. And it was just so much money. And I was in the mindset this can last forever. And, all just the normal things, and just focused on making more. but that part of the journey, what was kind of this first change and kind of understanding or wanting to understand money differently, is I'd made all that money for a handful of years, and I found myself a single mom, completely broke. We've heard these stories before, totally in debt, tax liens, and I could not afford like a roof over her head. Like I had to get very creative. And the only thing that kept us even going with me being a single mom with 2 babies was that peers at work pitched in and gave us some furniture and towels and blankets and prepaid utilities. And I mean, it was horrific. And it was so shameful because here I was like number one everything. And I found myself in a situation where I had to take charity to even get the lights turned on in a crappy apartment. So after I got over kind of some of the shame and the pity party I was in, I finally like thought to myself, how the hell did I make all that money and I'm in this financial situation? I mean, it didn't make sense. Like I couldn't reconcile that. So that set me on this journey that there's got to be more to this money thing that meets the eye. And that was I think you read this book. Many of the listeners read the book. That got me to the place of reading this first book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book was so illuminating and mindset shifting and so like unbelievable at the time that was like, holy shit, like the way we think about this money thing is so off. It's so wrong. And it sets us up for failure, financial failure, one way or another. So that was that part of the journey. And so that got me into looking at money less as making it and more as like, how much can I kind of build my net worth and my balance sheet? And I became a pretty savvy investor, even while I was building businesses and doing all the things. But then, so I kind of fixed my money problem in the sense that I learned money and learned like, hey, spend less than you make and invest the difference and become a good investor and build a great business. But, you know, at the same time, make sure you're not overliving the lifestyle and not building a portfolio. So I learned that lesson and that worked, you know, I was doing well at that. But I was still chasing the success. I was still chasing the dollar. I was still chasing the accolades. Like enough was never enough. And so that's part of me I hadn't figured out yet. And it was that part of that, like second part of my money journey, if you will, that I did very well financially, but it came at a great cost because enough was never enough. And that was all motivated from this internal belief that I wasn't enough, that there, you know, that who I was and my importance to the world was so connected to my accolades and how many zeros I had, or, you know, where I was on any chart, if you will. And enough was never enough. I think many of us can relate to that. It came at a great cost of my health. And I had a really serious health breakdown that took me to my knees and nearly took my life. And it wasn't then until I realized going through that healing journey and really realizing like, oh my God, this is the second piece of the money equation that I think we have wrong, is that we're always chasing that more. We're always chasing that ego. We're always chasing something, and enough is never enough. We're never satisfied. We're never worthy, like where we are. And, you know, we're doing it for money's sake, or to have more clout, or have more success, or have more zeros, or be able to have more expensive things that we can show off to the rest of the world. And it's not about wellness. It's not about, oh, I need a healthy body, mind, spirit, and family. And those are the things that are important. And how much money then is required in my life that really supports, underwrites the cost of living a life that's well, WELL. And that brought us where we are today, that I exited my old life, sold everything that I could sell, put a torch to everything else that I couldn't sell, and really made it my life's mission to teach money, but through the lens of, it's not about how many zeros, it's about quality of life. And how much money do we need to earn and save and invest so that we have a quality of life for today and a good quality of life, you know, when we choose not to work anymore, which is what we call financial independence.
Yeah, and it's cool to see your structure in that, because what you got, you know, in Krisstina, there's so many details in the story too that are just powerful. Like, you know, when you showed up with your 2 kids at the duplex that was for sale, and you're like, I don't have any money I can put into this now, but can you help me? And just the way that you have so much grit And Krisstina was like #1 Keller Williams real estate mogul for a lot of years, and then her health took a downturn, and marriage and everything. But so if you're looking for someone who's credible, someone who's been there, if you're struggling right now, like Krisstina, you've been impressive in the way that you've always come back on top, and so I love the structure in your model because essentially. Financial independence is there, but you do it in a way where people's health is preserved in the process of accumulating wealth. And I think in America and our society is always more is better. And whether that's more zeros, more money in the bank, and then we get pretty stingy when it comes to our body's own health. We think, we kind of treat ourselves like a slave. I don't know if you've seen that in entrepreneurs, but a lot of them push themselves to just until they literally collapse, and then they finally do something about their health. But what are some of the stories that you've seen, or maybe some of the people that you've helped, turn their thinking around when it comes to money?
Yeah, well, just to add on to a few things you've said there, and one is, I lost everything. So like in the burnout, like I just call it full burnout, but my body burned out. It's like running an F1 car and just pushing it to the limits, driving it, as fast as it can go constantly without reinvesting in it, without caring for it, without stopping to rotate the tires and change the oil. And, and I think as entrepreneurs, we're really geared that way. We treat our bodies as a thing. And we don't really think about if our bodies give out, there's nothing left to do. And that's what happened is my body gave out. And when that happened, so many things happened along with it. It's like my body gave out, but what I didn't realize is when my body can't work, I can't make money,
Yeah.
And everything started to collapse around me. And with my body sick in bed and I can't get out of bed, I can't enjoy my family. I literally can't go out and smell the roses that we walk by and take for granted every single day. Mm. And these things that are so easy to take for granted become very, you become very remorseful that you didn't take the time to do some of these things. But yeah, that's and so this thing is like made millions, lost millions. Made millions, lost millions. So that's a part of the story. So the way it's really easy to lose our money. Clearly, I think many of us, and in fact, I can't tell you how many kind of really multimillionaires I interview, even on my path to that type of thing. And one of my questions is how close to bankruptcy have you been, or have you filed bankruptcy? And these are rich people. And it's very few and far between that haven't had at least one bankruptcy or one close to bankruptcy. So the point is, losing the money is really easy when you do all this stuff to make it. But rebuilding it then, to your point, is structure and principles. So it's really understanding these financial principles and structure, like you said, that each time you kind of learn from the mistakes, like, oh, don't do that to lose out everything. But to build it becomes easier to rebuild or build becomes easier once we understand these principles. And one of those is really for entrepreneurs and business owners, what I call the biggest mistake is that we're taught as entrepreneurs to really chase and to grow. And so we're constantly chasing the growth. We're constantly trying to push and all the kind of the marketing out there, if you're a 5-figure business, it's how to get to 6 figures. If you're a 6-figure business, how to get to 7 figures. If it's a 7-figure business, how to get to 8 figures, and so on. As though if we just build a bigger business, all of our financial problems will be solved and we'll live happily ever after.
Right.
It's kind of the way it is. And one, that leads to burnout in many cases. 2, we're burning our bodies out. We're not reinvesting in our bodies. And so many of us, I know you see this all the time, these very successful, busy entrepreneurs are coming to you and their bodies are a wreck.
Yeah.
I know that's what you're trying to fix all the time. Like, what if you didn't have to fix so many broken people, broken entrepreneurs? But 3, it's not the formula for happiness. It's not the formula for wealth. And it's just not. And it just keeps us so focused on the business. And what there is there's a difference between income and wealth. And it's so fundamental and categorical difference. But until we're like really taught to think through these two different distinctions, it's all about chasing the income, building a bigger business. And every time we decide to grow the business, it comes at a greater cost, usually a greater time cost, a greater capital cost, a greater stress cost. So, we're just saying, hey, let's grow without factoring in the cost. And it's just, and again, it's just focused on the business and growing the business, and kind of the byproduct of that is we'll make a lot of money, and the byproduct of that is we'll have a lot of wealth. And understanding the difference between income and wealth is to understand, like, no, income is like what the first part of income is working income. You're working right now, I'm working right now. Whether we have to work or not at this point is irrelevant. We're both working. And assuming by virtue of the work that we're doing, we're paying ourselves through our business. That's called working income. So again, the bigger our business, in many cases, we can pay ourselves more if the business allows that through something called profitability. And we need to know the difference between revenue and profit. Chase profit, not revenue of the business, which is a different conversation. But it's understanding that the income is created in the business as entrepreneurs. Wealth is created at home.
Yeah. And tell me about that, because one of your concepts was, how many entrepreneurs are, they're just living paycheck to paycheck, even though they're owning a business, because they haven't reinvested into their own wealth. And so I think that's huge.
Yeah, that's the second fundamental mistake. The first mistake of entrepreneurs is just we focus all in the business and money just in the business, and we're paying ourselves. And thinking bigger business is better, like more is better type of thing. The second fundamental mistake that's really a subset of that is we reinvest any extra dollars, so to speak, that we're not spending, that we don't pay ourselves. We invest all those back into the business. Yeah. So ultimately, we have one asset, and all of our investment dollars go into the business. And so the business has all of the money, and businesses can, I don't know about you, but can your money just eat, like the Cookie Monster can just gobble down money and spend? Yeah. Like can your business just eat the money like nobody's business, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I had one of my friends, he called it like a money eating machine. He's just like, the bigger that my practice has grown, the more money it just eats.
And businesses eat money, like seriously. Like if you can visualize this, it's like this thing that just loves to eat the money. Like we don't have control over that. Like it will eat it. And that means any dollar we invest into it, the business is going to eat it. Now, hopefully the more strategic we are, and we're following the dollars, and we're very cognizant of these reinvestments, we'll be okay. But most entrepreneurs are not. They're just putting all their extra money, again, assuming there's these investment dollars. So that's the second mistake. And what that means is that ultimately we want to create wealth. Wealth exists on a balance sheet. And so if we are worth $1 million, our net, that's our $1 million net worth. And that means on our balance sheet, not including our primary residence, it's $1 million. So we could say if we have a balance sheet, which is our assets minus our liabilities, that we say like, okay, we want to say it's $1 million. The many entrepreneurs will say, oh, well, my business is worth $1 million. And so on my balance sheet, if I was going to show that to a banker, it's going to show the asset value of my business is $1 million, but there's nothing else on the balance sheet. Mm-hmm. And what that means is we think that on the market, we could go sell our business, let's say net for $1 million. That's what it'd be worth, like the total value minus liabilities. But if we're being honest, very few people that think their business is worth $1 million or $5 million or $10 million can actually go out and sell it for that. So it's probably not worth that. But the point is that on the balance sheet is show us one asset. Many businesses are lifestyle businesses anyway, which means they have no asset value. Once the founder owner is gone, the business really doesn't have a lot of value because the owner is most of the value. But so what we want to do while we grow the business, we actually want to create personal net worth, personal wealth. And what that means is that still today, 85% of entrepreneurs are paycheck to paycheck. And it doesn't matter if their business is $1 million business or $10 million business or $30 million business. The entrepreneur, the founder, owner, the primary partner, they're still paycheck to paycheck. What that means is that they pay themselves, and then they use all that money in their household and there's nothing left over. But the more money they make, the more expensive their lifestyle gets. And so now what happens naturally is this stress, this constant stress. Now we bring in the stress home to our families, to our spouses, to our children, because now there's this constant stress because there's a certain amount of stress if we need to cover a $10,000 a month lifestyle. It's a whole different level of stress when you need to cover a $50,000 a month lifestyle. Mm. So now it's like, oh my God, now I have to go back to the business and hustle and crank it out because I have to cover $50,000 a month of bills that I've created for myself. And so that's what we call the month to month. And so the large majority of every business owner and entrepreneur, no matter the side of their business, is still paycheck to paycheck. And that's an enormous amount of stress. And the interesting thing about that's kind of the irony or the counterintuitive piece is the more money we make, the more financially stressed we get, not the opposite. Mm. And that's the lifestyle we're setting up for ourselves. Because these expensive lifestyles look really good. And now we get sick or something happens. And now there's this different layer of stress, or we start to go through divorce, all these other layers that this financial element is such an important, I mean, it's a piece of all of it. Because part of that is that, again, if we can understand that the income is created in the business and the wealth is created in our health, our personal finance, then the easy takeaway is spend less than you make, like seriously, and have something in your margin. There's a money maxim. It's called wealth is created in the margins. Mm. And so it's in that margin where wealth is. So if we spend 100% of what we make, there's zero margin. But if we spend 80% of what we make, now we have a 20% margin. We're assuming after taxes. So now that 20% is like, what am I going to do with that 20% that I'm not spending? Mm. It's like, oh, well, if I invest that, and I teach invest in financial assets and invest in your health. So we always have money to spend with Regan to make sure we're either, optimizing our health or we're anti-aging, regenerating, whatever we need to do to take care of our F1 bodies as entrepreneurs. But I teach how to invest in both. But now that 20% we're using to buy assets, to build that portfolio. And we want to do that from the day that we start making money. That's the key. Like if we don't, this is at least what we can tell our kids from your first paycheck, have a minimum of a 10% margin and work up to a 20% margin and live off the margin. Yeah. So that's where we start building that personal net worth. And over time, you're worth $5-10 million or whatever the case is. And then, you become a more savvy investor over time. So we have these two engines working that when we're working today for our paycheck, so to speak, we're working for our current self and our current family and our current month-to-month lifestyle. And we're working for our 10 to 20-year-older self. Mm. Working dollars today works for our current self and our future self. And we can understand that. And we look at hey, I'm going to be, especially working with Regan, I'm going to be 10 years older. I'm going to live 20 years older. What do I want my financial situation to be? Do I still want to be in this month to month? Do I still want to be hustling this hard? Do I still want to be taking this much risk and reinvesting everything? So the point is that we can't reinvest everything back into the business. We need to be, you can have some in your business that you keep in your business as for reinvestment, but you keep it in the business for that business piece. But out of everything you're paying yourself, you're investing that margin over the period of time. So now the final piece to this, kind of step 3, if you will, is something that I call how much money is enough. And so I have this quiz, and I'll send it to you, that I really encourage anybody to take. But it's just a 10-question money quiz. And it's really to question you, do you know how much money is enough? Mm-hmm. And the answer is probably going to be no. And the average, so thousands of people have taken this quiz, and it's so illuminating to me. Because again, most of the people that take this quiz, they're making pretty good money. You have pretty good businesses. They're making some good money. We're way out of the survival numbers, over 6 figures of household income. And yet the average score of this quiz is 33% out of 100%. Wow. So you take it like a test that you could score 100%. So these are smart, savvy business owners making good money with an average score of 33%. And I call this is, I didn't like the term financial illiteracy because it makes me think of just beginner Dave Ramsey, kind of the basics types of thing. No, I'm saying that These are multi-million-dollar business owners that are scoring 33%. And that means we're so in the dark when it comes to the most basic personal finance questions. And the number one question that I think is the most important financial question we can ask ourselves and have the answer to is this question of how much money is enough. Because if not, it's always in the chase of more. And when you know how much money is enough, and when you know you're on track based on all your spending and investing practices and business practices, according to this enough number, that wipes away like 80% of financial stress when you know your number and you know you're on track to hit it. And it's just having that clarity and the knowledge of just these 10 numbers that I put in this quiz that can completely reshape our relationship with money, our mood about money, our emotional, response to money. Is that simple of finding the answers to these kind of 10 questions with, like I said, the big one is how much money is enough. But by just asking ourselves the question of how much money is enough to live a good life, you realize it's not an easy answer. You realize, like, when you sit down, if I just say, hey, here's your exercise, come back in 15 minutes and tell me, you'd be like, oh, I think it's pretty easy. Then you're going to sit down and try to do it. Be like, oh, wait a second. There's more to this question. There's questions embedded in that question. So in the quiz allows you to score above the average of 33%. And then two, it helps you identify like how much is enough number.
And what are some of the criteria that you're using? I mean, I'd imagine it's like, you got to pay your bills and you need to have cost of living covered. I mean, how do you find your number?
Yeah, so there's a few different parts. I'm so glad you asked. But there's a few parts to it. So the first thing is like, if we're looking at how much money is enough, the first question we're looking at is how much is enough net worth? Because the purpose of valuing ourselves at net worth is to get to roundabout number, is to understand, like in just kind of generic financial terms, that $1 million equals about $50,000 of passive income. So these are financial rules of thumb just to get you started. So then that's like, okay, so if I want to reach this place of financial independence or retirement or wealth, whatever word we want to give it, label we want to give it, it's like, okay, how many millions do I need if we use that rule of thumb number? So if I can live off $50,000 a year, or I want to retire one day or just not be dependent on big business anymore, then like, oh, I need $1 million. Well, 50,000 is not enough. My current lifestyle is $250,000 a year. So it's like, oh, then in that case, I need a $5 million net worth. So now the intention is I need to build a $5 million net worth. And that's called a portfolio. And so now when we're intentional about this, one, we know our number. I need to build a $5 million net worth over the next 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, how many years you give yourself, which is part of the equation. And then it's like, okay, I can look at that as a pie chart and say, well, I'm building a business that's exitable. And if I'm going to be very conservative, let's say I could sell that for $3 million, net, because this is net after taxes and paying partners and paying everything. And I forget the statistic, and a little sidebar, but he's still a good friend, but I haven't talked to him in a while. But I asked him, I said, Steve, he helps businesses exit. So that's what he does. He had a big exit, and he helps other businesses exit. And he really goes through this financial part with them, because when he exited his business, he sold it for like 30 million or something, but he only pocketed like 8 million out of 30.
Wow.
And then he had to pay taxes on it. So he thought, oh my God, I had this $30 million exit, and that's everything we're trying to do. But after paying all the people that need to be paid and taxes and all the things, like and so that was so he didn't understand how that happened. Like, how could I only keep 8 when I sold 30?
Yeah.
But he figured out that was kind of the formula, that it's usually you're keeping maybe 40, 50% if it's great of the business upon an exit, because of what it costs to exit and all the people need paid and how the stock was set up and all the different things. And so he told me the statistic, and I can't remember what it was, but it was like on average 33 to 40% is what the founder keeps of their exit. So you think, oh, I'm going to sell for 30, but you only come up with 8. Think about how that So it's like, oh, but, and say he thought his number was 30 million. He sold that, but he's now 8. He's still shy of the rest if that's the lifestyle he wanted to create. So my point of telling that story is that we want to give our business a valuation if we think we can sell it, but be really conservative and maybe do that. Like take half or a third of what we even think we could sell it for if we use some of these rule of thumb numbers. But that's a piece of the pie chart. It's like, okay, I could sell my business for 3. I'm still 2 million short of my $5 million net worth. So what am I going to invest in outside of the business to accumulate the rest of that net worth? But the thing is I teach like your business needs to be a small piece of the pie chart. It shouldn't be the entire pie chart. But we're not thinking about that way because we're putting all our investment dollars back in the business. Mostly not even thinking it might be exit with no exit strategy, but mostly just thinking, I just need to make more money. As long as I make a lot of money, all my financial problems will be solved. So that's piece 1 is figuring out how much net worth do you need. And piece 2 of that, like I said, is you need to know how much money it costs to live your current life.
Yeah.
How much does it cost to live? Because you need to earn from your business enough money to cover your current lifestyle costs. And so it's saying, okay, let's say my current lifestyle, we'll keep the math easy. Let's say my current lifestyle cost, assuming, no debt and different things, is $100,000. And so I can do this math. Most of us are making more than that. So that means I need $2 million net worth if I'm going to have $100,000 of passive income.
Yeah.
Because, right? So every million's 50,000. So I need $2 million for $100,000 lifestyle. So then it's like, okay, I need $2 million net worth is going to cover my $100,000 lifestyle, right? So those are the first 2 pieces. Now, what it is to that though, it takes time and effort. It's not as obvious, like how much does it really cost to live my life? And is $100,000 enough? Maybe I'm making that now, but would I want some upgrades? Like how much does it really cost? Then how many people have actually sat down with their spouse and said, let's talk about our life, the quality of life, what's a good life to us, meaning if it never got better than this, it would be good enough, and quantify it. And it's pretty easy to quantify and get within some reasonable number. But that's part of the work that we never do. We do all this business strategy and all the stuff in the business, but we don't do a life strategy, which is where life shows up. Business is business. We enjoy life through our personal vacations, through our personal expenditures, through our personal investments in ourselves and different things. We spend money on life personally, not in our business. I mean, business is a whole different thing, but we get lost in this. So it's like, no, what is our life? If we want to take a marriage retreat once a year, if we want to take a family vacation once a year, this is the kind of house we want. That's, plenty house, but maybe not too much house. And all the things that's really meaningful, and quantify that. And once we know that number, now you can multiply by 20 and know how much net worth that you need and take out the amount that you think your business might be worth. So now let's look at, okay, we've determined that we need $2 million net worth. And let's just say that's it's $50,000 a year we need to invest outside of our business to hit this $2 million net worth in, let's say, 10, 15 years. I'm making up numbers. So it's saying, okay, now my cost of my lifestyle is $100,000, but I need to invest $50,000 to hit my future self. So now my business needs to earn $150,000. And I need to have taxes on top of that. So let's say taxes are another $50,000. So where we thought that even our cost of our lifestyle is $100,000, what we have to now do is now we have to inform the business to say, hey, business, you need to profit $200,000 so that we have enough money to live our current lifestyle at $100,000. So we have our $50,000 we can invest and we can pay $50,000 of taxes. But now, I'm just kind of making up these numbers to do the point. But how much easier is it then that now as business owners, like, shoot, the business, I just need a business strategy that profits, $200,000 a year. And at a 20% profit margin, that means my revenue of my business needs to be X, whatever that math is. And let's just say in that case, it's $500,000. So it's like, For me to hit all of my numbers, I need a $500,000 business. Many coaches or different people, it's not too hard to create a $500,000 business that nets $200,000 and would allow you to live all those things. But the point is, just by asking all these questions and filling in the blanks of these numbers, now we have a business financial target strategy versus like, oh my God, I need to follow what everybody's saying. I need to grow my business. It's like, no, as long as I can sustain this, I'm going to hit all my numbers and we're just fine. And now I don't have to be, stressed out in my business all the time. I can, have in a lot more space and different things. But again, it's creating a business strategy based off our personal goals and targets as opposed to letting our business dictate what our personal goals and targets are going to be. It's complete reverse engineer.
Well, it makes a lot of sense. And then when you can put that intentionality behind your business, then you can prevent the burnout because you're like, you're putting some money back into the tank for you. And money is just, it's energy, right? It's a currency. We call it currency. And so it's a currency. And so if you can have that currency in the bank, it's very easy to make better decisions instead of feeling like you've just got to work nonstop. And I like that. So a lot of times, it's a process. Then it's not like the get rich quick scheme. There's no secret to success. There's just no it's from your and in listening to you speak and knowing your work. And knowing all your clients. By the way, Krisstina has some of the most amazing people that work with her. Very successful people get advice from Krisstina. So for those of you who are listening to what she's saying, and you're like, I need to do this right now, especially if you're in like your 30s, 40s, 50s, like don't wait, do the work because it's very practical by nature and it's not super sexy to just like figure out your number. It's just...
Well, it's not. I laugh because, now I've been talking about kind of the personal finance side. Now let's just jump into business. I'm a business owner. I have a good business and I'm in all the business and entrepreneurial things like the rest of us. So, when I go back to the business side, a business problem that I have, just, funny enough, is that what I teach isn't the sexy piece. I think it's more important than any other money stuff, business stuff out there is this very practical, non-sexy, non-sizzly thing. Like it really is the steak, not the sizzle. But it's since it's not sexy, it doesn't sound sexy. Like my offer is more difficult to market and sell because I'm not selling like, oh, how to go from 7 to 8 figures and I've got the thing. But, my thing is, I want my clients and students and those that, work with me and go through my programs, I want them to have a 7 and 8 figure net worth. I could care less about the 7 or 8 figure business. A lot of my students have, a 6 and 7 figure business, but they're working on their 7 and 8 figure net worth and very intentional. Freedom lives in the net worth side. It doesn't end in the business side. We can work till we're dead. We can work and be in the hustle and the grind and the burnout. You're still making a lot of money, but be no closer to any type of, not financial freedom, but space freedom, time freedom, where it's just like, I don't have to hustle today. Like I've got plenty of money that's coming to me through my assets. And that's the feeling we want. It's, people say the word financial freedom all the time. Like, again, it's about the money. It's like, no, it's not about the money. The money is just kind of this placeholder, but it's what the money creates. And it's the feeling of freedom.
Yeah.
It's the feeling of space. It's the feeling of like, man, I don't have to hustle today if I don't want to. It's that feeling we're after, but it gets mismarketed like, oh, create financial independence. And that's where we're going. It's like, no, you're missing the point. The hustle, the burnout comes from like every single month we have to go back to the business and do it again. When I was in sales, it was kind of my big kind of aha, kind of the earlier part of my journey too, is that, when I was sales, when all I did was sales, real estate sales, it was interesting to me, like the carrot was all the awards. Back then it's like, oh, be number one producer. And I got to be on stage and I got all the medals and all the accolades that fed my ego. And I'm worthy because I've got all these medals, and I get to put on my website that I'm number one in all these things type of thing. And that worked for a few years where I was very motivated by that carrot. But then kind of like the 4th or 5th year of that, on January 1, I was like, shit, I'm starting at 0 and I have to do it again. And it's kind of that same, now at the end of December 31st, if I did it again, I can have all those medals around my neck. But every January 1, it was starting over. I'm like, this sucks. Like, I don't want to start over from ground zero on every one January 1. And that same thing is what we're doing month to month. Like on January 1, we're starting the hustle to pay December's bills, and we pay December's bills. And then on February 1, we're ground zero, I have to go back to the hustle. So opposed to doing it on an annual basis, we're doing that month to month. And that's where the burnout happens. When there's no room, we have no financial room. We have no savings. We have no investments. We have no passive income. We have to go back to hustle and grind and push and stress and handle all the colossal challenges. And I don't know about you, but the bigger my business gets, the bigger the challenges, the more expensive the problems, the more complaining and the more HR. And, it doesn't get easier with bigger. So we want to find that number that's our number, that's about our meaningful life, and our meaningful business is connected to our meaningful life, and integrate these together.
Man, I think that's beautiful. And that's where sometimes the non-sexy, the boring is actually what gets the results. And at the end of the day, that's what it is. All the sizzle out there, most of the time when you meet those people, you're like, well, you're actually not doing it. You're not even where you want. You're promising you can take other people to be. And, but you're someone who's done it. I love the way you spelled out all your assets, and you showed us exactly, you opened up your own books personally. I was like, oh yeah, here's someone who's walking the talk literally. And so I do respect that about you and appreciate that. And so as far as someone who's engaging with you, like, what's the first step? How can people, that you want them to take the quiz, but, what do you have events coming up, or is it your online? I know your online course is just phenomenal, but what's it like working with you?
I do 2 classes per year. So I take entrepreneurs through 12 weeks where we, as a group, we go through and we break down our business and our personal money into these different categories. And I teach the principles of money and how much to pay ourselves. And you said something earlier, which is so true. And just to underscore that, but you said money's energy and money's currency. So that's partially true. Water has no energy if it's sitting in a pond doing nothing.
Yeah.
Water is energy when it's moving.
Yeah.
And the faster it moves, the more directions it moves, the more current it gets, right? So, and electricity. So electricity is the currency. So most of us, the only currency, we're kind of the only energy of our money is what I call money in, money out. We're paying ourselves and we spend all of our money. We're not paying attention to how it's spent. And money is doing all the work. I mean, it's taken a life of its own. We put it in, and somehow our household can eat up all the money, just like our business can eat up all the money.
Yep.
So we're not owners of our money. We're not movers of our money. We're not actors with our money. We're just working hard for it and paying our bills. So one of the money principles of wealth, as opposed to income, it's that we need to give our money jobs. We need to be the CEO of our money, and we need to move it. So the way money starts growing and growing fast, and when we give it current. So we create currency out of how we move it. And that's one of the principles that I teach, is how to move your money and how to move it powerfully, that we call it cash flowing. To get that cash flowing and flowing intentionally, moving it here and moving it there and growing it here and growing it there, with complete purpose around knowing our numbers in each one of the buckets in these categories, where we're the CEO of our life. I teach that wealth is created in the household. So I teach how to use business finance in your household and treat your household like your wealth creating business. And your business isn't a business of creating profit, which ultimately becomes your income. So we want to create that currency. So to answer your question, in the 12 weeks is we learn every aspect of money and how to move and account for every dollar in a powerful way. So every dollar starts growing. Every dollar gets energy. Every dollar is doing something that we give it a role to do. It is just like in our business, we wouldn't hire 5 people and have them all do the same thing. But, when we hire 5 roles in our business and we hold those roles accountable and those 5 talents, that's when we know we like, that's great business. Is like, wow, I'm a leader and as the CEO and leader of my business, and assuming I could hire 5 people that are the 5 fundamental roles of my small business. They're great talent. I manage them. I grow them. I hold them accountable. I invest in them. I have a relationship with them. I care for them. We're tracking the results. They're getting rewarded on the results that they create. That we can do amazing things with 5 great people. But if they all did the same things or weren't managed, we treated them badly, or we had no relationship, or we didn't pay attention to them, those great 5 people aren't probably going to do well in our business, and they probably just even disappear.
Right.
But we get that in business. So now in our household, we want to, even in business too, but we want to do the same thing with our money. We want to have this relationship with our money and give it roles, give it jobs, and hold our money accountable and track the results and track the KPIs and know what we're after and measure the results of our money relative to the goals that we set with our money. So when we employ the same kind of business practices in our money as we do with our business, assuming we've kind of nailed it in our business, money outperforms any person will ever perform. And it takes direction so well, and it works 365, 24/7 a day. It never takes a break. It doesn't argue back. It doesn't have moods. It doesn't take vacations. And that's what we're missing again, because we just think, if we work really hard and create a big business, we're going to have plenty of money. And that's why 85% of entrepreneurs are still month to month, because we're living this total mythical nature and belief system of, how money works, and again, just over focused in our business. And kind of the final piece to that, what we do in the 12 weeks is we call it meaning and money. And it's really, the whole program is organized around, like I said, answering this philosophical question of what is a good life? What is meaningful? What is a good life today? And what is a good life for my, 10 or 20 year older future self that's going to be here before I know it? And how do I take care of the concerns of myself today, myself tomorrow, our family, and maybe any legacy? So we start there, and then we start quantifying everything, and then start breaking it down to these pieces. But it's a life course more than it is like a money course, even though we're using money as kind of the tool, and the money as the microscope in a way that helps us develop a whole different relationship with our money, practice with our money. But again, it's organized around quality of life and meaning of life. And like I said, and one of those is, how much do I invest back in my own body and my own self to make sure that my body is always able to perform?
Yeah. Well, I love that. And I think that's where, just to round off what you started with is, there's wealth, and there's the derivative of what the word wealth means. And you're teaching true wealth principles, which is priceless. But you're doing it in a way that's practical, because those are the things that actually work. These principles, it's not some fly by night principles, but you're actually helping people get grounded in the fact that, hey, you can actually choose the lifestyle that you want if you just make these little simple decisions to, I love what you said, like, think of your money as like 5 employees in your household, and then have some accountability and checklists. Is it working the way that you want it to? So, man, this has been phenomenal, Krisstina. I love this, and we got to have you back on for sure. But the best thing that people can do right now is, from what I can tell, is take the quiz, like see where you're at. If because I know a lot of you are doing great financially, but maybe there's some room for improvement. And so they take the quiz, they go to wisemoneymethod.com/quiz. Is that correct?
Yeah, wisemoneymethod.com/quiz. Yeah, take the quiz again. It's very eye-opening. And even if you got 100%, then you don't need me or anybody like me. But if you're scoring under 50, there's, like you said, probably room to improvement. And it's probably going to surprise you. Like, it's just a surprising thing. So I encourage everybody to take the test, but the quiz. But what it is that even before, take the quiz, but what's also attached to the quiz once you take it is you get a little workbook, and it's going to guide you through really what I teach in the program over 12 weeks, kind of the overview guide, but will help you answer all those 12 questions on your own. But I encourage everybody to try to come up with their good enough number before they do the workbook. But the workbook is really valuable and helpful. And then, in that, there's a way to, like, after you take that, if you want to set up a 45-minute just money consult with me, ask me any money question or investing question, I offer that for anybody that's, taken the quiz and done the workbook. So I'm happy to go through that. That's a way to get on my calendar if anybody's listening and just wants to have a money talk and chat about money business or anything that has to do with money in business.
Cool. Love it. Well, for those of you who love the show, make sure you share it with your friends, your family, especially your kids, anybody who you think could use some support when it comes to money talk. And there's no one better than Krisstina Wise. So Krisstina, thanks so much for being on the show and for being a great friend and collaborative partner. Really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.